Hey, good morning, everybody. My name's Simon Legood. Welcome to the Kandy Technical Fireside Chat. Today we are going to be talking about some of the KBS SIP phone customizations that you guys can do. Some pretty beneficial things in here. But before we get started, I just kind of wanted to introduce you. So I do have a couple of people on the phone that are going to be kind of helping monitor questions and things like that on this session. First we have Sarah Hughes, who's going to be, again, helping with answering questions, monitoring your chat, and all of those kinds of things. Also have Jason Whitaker on the line with us, and again, he'll be assisting with some of the more technical questions and things that come through. Um, all right, so let's go ahead and just kind of dive into it. So in today's session, I know you have all seen the agenda for the session, but we are going to be adding a couple of agenda items that we found beneficial to you guys. So the first one we're going to talk about is going to be modifying device keys. So I'm going to show you how you can go into the KBS admin portal and actually modify the device keys for Polycom, Yealink, and Cisco devices. Once we've kind of talked about that, I'll go into adding in device parameters, and that's where we're going to spend quite a bit of this session today talking about. So we'll talk about how to add parameters into the portal and how those work, what they do, and then we'll go into some of the parameters that you guys can certainly take advantage of, things that will help you guys as you're moving forward. So the first one's going to be changing the phone features over to network features. So this is talking about like your call forwarding or your do not disturb functions. We're going to talk about some troubleshooting tools. So remote screen capture is a very beneficial tool that you guys can use. So we'll talk about how to implement that. We'll also talk about adding in global address books and personal address books to the phone so that they are all synced with what you guys have in the KBS admin portal for these customers. And then lastly, we'll talk about adding logos to the phones. These can be largely beneficial so that the end users know who it is that their phone vendor is, or you can even add in things like technical support information, who to contact, all of those kinds of things as logos on the phones. All right, so the first thing that we're going to look at is modifying device keys. So to modify device keys, what you're going to do is you're going to go into fulfillment and then into subscribers. You're going to then locate the subscriber that you want to modify the button configuration on the phone for. And over on the right-hand side, you'll see there's a modify device keys button. When you do click into this, it is going to bring you into a screen that looks like this. Over on the left-hand side, you'll see there's a bunch of numbered keys and then hyperlinks for the functions for those keys. Now, up in the top center of the screen, there is a checkbox that says Show Image. If you actually check that box, for most phones, Polycom, Yealink, it'll actually pull up a diagram of the device itself and give you the button mapping so you can see which number over here corresponds to which button on the physical phone. So that's a pretty handy thing to be able to look at while you're customizing these. When you do click on the hyperlink for the function, it's going to bring up a box over here on the right-hand side of that numbered list. It's going to give you the ability to add in the function. So whether you're doing BLF or you're doing call park or whatever the function is that you're trying to set for these devices. You select that from the drop down, and then depending on your selection, it'll give you the ability to add in some additional fields. So key label is going to be what the device actually says. You also have, if it's a BLF, you can select which user, things of that nature. For our So this is just a screenshot of, this is my telephone, just to give you kind of an idea of what it looks like once you actually have some things configured. You can see here I've got on device key T2, I've got a BLF with speed dial. And then on 4, 5, and 6, I've got a couple of speed dials set up for people that I contact on a regular basis. So what you're seeing over here on the right-hand side, again, is the diagram for the phone that I have on my desk. And then a screenshot of what that physical phone looks like. So you can see the BLF is on key 2, and then 4, 5, and 6 have these speed dials enabled. It does look a little bit different on a Cisco device. So this is a screenshot of that same portal, but this is a Cisco phone. With the Cisco phones, the user interface that you guys have access to is meant to look a lot like the display on the actual device that you're working with. So in this particular case, we're working with a 6851 Cisco device. So you see the display screen in the image here on the right-hand side. This center section is meant to mirror that display screen, and then the buttons on the left-hand side and the right-hand side correlate to the buttons on the phone itself, and all your soft keys are down at the bottom. So it's kind of trying to give you a visual of what the physical phone is going to look like. If there were more buttons on the left and right, you'd have more options over here. Um, Essentially, the way that this works is very similar to the way that it works in the other portal. So you just click on whichever button it is that you want to configure. And then in the center is where you're going to be able to select your functions, what user you're monitoring, all of those various settings. This is a screenshot taken from the admin side of things. So you can see all the various options that an administrator would have to be able to set up keys for the devices. Once you've done all of these configuration settings, it does save as you go. So you would just do your normal perform a check sync to send those configurations down to the phone. The other thing I wanted to share with you about the button configurations, so you do have the ability to enable end users to be able to configure these buttons using the end user web portal. So the way that you would do that is under sites, you can set it up so that it is enabled to allow end users to configure device keys. And then that would be the default setting. Um, Optionally, you can, instead of setting it at the site level, you can actually do it in the subscriber level. So once you've gone in to select the device and you're still, choosing the MAC address or the model or however you're selecting your device, there is a checkbox down at the bottom that allows end users to change the device keys in the end user portal. So if you check that box, then end users can actually go into the end user web portal and make modifications to their device keys as well. That being said, when they do log into the end user web portal, they are a little bit limited on what they can do. The easiest way to think about their restrictions is that they can't set their phone to monitor another subscriber. So things like BLF, BLF speed dial, call park, those are all things that would have to be set up in the admin side of things. But an end user gets a very similar interface is what we have seen in the admin side of house. The difference is their options in the function drop down are just going to be limited to the things that they have the ability to do. So real quick, I do have an SMB pulled up. I've already gone into the subscriber area. So this is just a demo training environment that I've got set up. But if I actually go into a subscriber, down here in the bottom where you select your devices, just to show you this is what that button looks like. So I've got it checked, allowing users to change their device keys in the end user portal. From an administrator perspective, I can come in here and click modify device keys. That's going to take me into the portal where I can come in and make modifications to whatever device keys I would like for this phone. Again, in the center of the screen, you have your show image button, which is going to give you the mapping for the device that I have connected. If I were to come in here and say I wanted to set something for key 2, so that's the second button down, I can come in here, I can select from the list. So maybe if I wanted this to be a BLF with speed dial, I can say set it to a person's name. I can come in here, I can select which user it is that I want to monitor, and then which number for that user that I want to monitor, and accept those changes. Now, once I do, I'll save it here and then perform a check sync on the phone. The phone will then reboot, and when it comes back up, I'll have a new button indicating Jennifer is the label, and that will allow me to not only monitor that line, but it will also allow me to call them. All right, so if I go back to the subscriber, so again, that was kind of the administrative view where I set up a BLF. If instead I were to go into the end user web portal, and again, I can just use the subscriber to pass through into their end user web portal. By going over to services, I also have a device keys option on the right-hand side of the screen. If I go into device keys here, again, it looks very similar to the admin view. I can see the button that I just configured, but if I were to come down to say button 3 and try and set something up, I do have limited options here. So again, I don't see things like BLF or call part directed, things like that.
Hey, we're seeing, can you change your display?
Oh, yep.
Thank you. There you go.
All right, so we can continue on. The next thing that I wanted to share with you guys is adding in device parameters. So device parameters are actually a really cool feature if you're not familiar with them. Essentially what these allow you to do is bulk configuration changes to the phone itself. So it's modifying the way that these phones actually function. And there's a multitude of different options that you can set up and make these, act how you want. Um, the first thing that you need to understand kind of about device parameters is that they do come at multiple levels. So the way that these get implemented is from the most specific rule to the most generic rule. So for example, if I were to go in and set a device parameter for one specific user or one specific department at an SMB, and then configure that to do, maybe they have access to a do not disturb function or something like that. I can configure those phones that way, but my rule that generically removes do not disturb would not apply to them because I've got a specific rule for those subscribers to allow it. So, things get applied in the most specific to the most generic. So if I had a site-wide remove do not disturb, but then I had another specific device parameter for specific subscribers to add do not disturb, the add do not disturb would apply to those. The other thing to keep in mind here is you can set device parameters at multiple levels. And what I mean by multiple levels, so in the example on the right-hand side for partner one just has SMBs directly below them. The SMBs could have their own device parameters specific to them, but they would also pull all of the device parameters from the partner level. So they would pull in partner one any device parameters that are applied there. So if you had, for example, at the partner level, if you set it up so that all devices were capable of screen capture, or you set it so that your company logo was perhaps displayed on all these phones, and you did that at the partner level, you wouldn't have to individually do it at the SMB levels because they would pull from you. The example over on the right-hand side, partner two, is a little bit more complicated than that. Because like I said, the SMB does pull from the partner above them. So in a situation where you have your partnership and perhaps you have a partner or a reseller underneath you, only the SMBs directly under you are going to pull your device parameters, whereas the SMBs underneath, in the example, partner A, are going to pull from partner A, but not partner two. So again, SMBs pull from the partner that's directly above them. And then those partners can have their own set of credentials or their own set of device parameters. The outlier here is the org A. So organizations also come with their own set of parameters. So they're not going to pull from the partnership above them. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind on how that hierarchy works. To configure device parameters, so you're going to go into fulfillment parameters, and then what you'll do is you'll go into, over on the right hand side, there's a button that says groups and parameters. You'll choose that. From there, you have the ability to add in a group. Groups can be set up in a couple of different ways. You can set them up based on device type. So if I wanted all of my, Yealink T46Gs or all of my Polycom VVX411s to have this particular configuration, I can set it up based on device type. You can also set parameters based on sites. So if I wanted one site to have a parameter that's slightly differently than another site, I can set them up on that level. I can also set them up based on specific users or even specific MAC addresses as I see fit. To add a new group in the system, you're going to, over on the right-hand side, click on Add Group. That is going to take you into a screen that looks like this. So just to give you an idea, the first thing you do need to do is name this group. If you're planning on importing, and we'll talk about importing parameters in just a minute, this name is what you need to fill out in the name field on your CSV file when you go to import. The scope is just, like I mentioned on the previous slide, you have device type, site, device user view, or device MAC view. So just depending on how you want to set this parameter up, this is how you're going to go about selecting the various phones or SIP devices that are on your network. The devices section, so if you are going based off device type, you can select which devices you would like. As you start selecting these, what you'll notice is if you select like a Cisco device or a Polycom device, it's going to yellow out all of the other manufacturer or vendor phones. These do need to be set up based on one vendor at a time. If you choose a scope that's relevant, so if you, for example, choose a device user view as the scope, this box will pop up giving you a full list of all of the subscribers on or built in this SMB. So you can go in and select those individual subscribers that this rule applies to. Same thing again for Mac. So if you want to view things based off the Mac, a box would show up in this area, giving you the ability to select those Mac addresses. Once you've gone through and you've made all the configuration changes here, you'll click Save Group. And that's kind of the first step in the process, right? So now that we've saved the group, the next thing that you need to do is you need to add parameters into that group. And this is where you can go about making the modifications that you would like to do. So the first thing that you're going to do to add parameters to this group is click the checkbox next to the group name. Once you've clicked the checkbox next to the group name over on the right-hand side, you have the ability to click Add Parameters. Add Parameters is going to let you do them kind of one at a time, or you can select Add from File. And when you click Add from File, it's going to allow you to import an entire CSV. So you'll see as we're kind of going through these, most of these device parameters are going to have multiple line items that you'll have to fill out. So typically you're probably going to want to import these from a file. If you go out to the partner portal, so partnerportal.kandy.io/knowledge, we do for Yealink and for Polycom phones, there's quite a few of these CSV files out there that you can go ahead and start using. What you'll notice in the CSV file is the very first column is going to be the group name. That needs to match the name that you've given it in the system here. Then there's an action field, the parameter, and then what the value is. Depending on which one of these device parameter sheets you're pulling, there may be some things then here that you need to go and customize. As we get into the more specific device parameter sections, I'll talk about which fields you need to customize and which ones can be left as they are. This is just a view of kind of what it looks like. So if you were to click add single parameter, it's going to bring up a window like this. So you can select which group this applies to, the action for that particular device parameter. You can then enter in the parameter and the value. So again, we'll look at how these are configured as we get into some more specific content. Here in just a few minutes, but this is the adding a single parameter option. If you want to add from a file, it's going to come up, it's going to ask you to browse to the particular location where that file exists. When you click on upload, it'll then give you the ability to verify that all of the device parameters are importing correctly, and then complete the import. So again, just to kind of show you what that looks like in the admin portal, if I come into fulfillment and then down to parameters under devices, it is going to initially take me in if I wanted to query the parameters for a device, but by clicking on the actions menu group/parameters, it's going to give me a full list of all the parameters that I've got set up for this SMB. So you can see I've got quite a few of them already configured in here. And some of these we'll talk about a little bit later on. But this is just kind of what they look like. They do have folders, so in a collapsed view, you can quickly see which parameters you're looking for. If there was something, say with the capture screen parameter that you wanted to look at, you can come in here and individually modify these line items after doing an import. So if you wanted to change the password or something like that, you can quickly come in here, type in the new password, and go on about your day. If I were to click over on the right and into the add parameter, again, this is just going to take me into a screen so that I can add in an individual parameter. I can select which group this is a part of. So if this was something that I needed to add to, say, the Yealink wallpaper, I can go in, add in my parameter, I can add in my value, and then save it over on the right-hand side. And I'm going to abandon the changes. Same thing again, if I wanted to add something from a file, I can come in here, I can select the file that I want to import. So if I, for example, wanted to import the poly do not disturb, I can come in here, select that, I'd click upload. It's coming up red because I've already got these parameters in the system. But if I wanted to, this would be the confirmation screen. I could view this and then complete import. Again, it's not allowing me to duplicate this because it already exists in the system. How are we doing, Jason and Sarah? Have we gotten any questions so far?
We had one, but Jason answered it publicly. So it was about the T31,
Okay.
T33 button template. So
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. The next thing that we wanted to talk to you guys about is, so by default, these SIP devices come with uh, buttons pre-configured on the phone. So things like your voicemail button, or call forwarding, or do not disturb functionality. Um, these things are built into these phones, and the phones are capable of performing those features using the firmware and things inside the phone itself. One thing that you may end up wanting to actually do is convert those uh, features that are built into these phones to use the actual network features, um, so that, if, for example, I want to call forward my phone, maybe I'm forwarding the phone because I'm moving offices or something like that, and I need to, disconnect my phone. Well, if the call forwarding is set at the phone level, and it's, the firmware on the phone, as soon as you unplug that, the call forwarding is going to stop working. So having it set up to be a network-based functionality is going to be largely beneficial for you. So to do that, you can do it, again, system-wide by using the device parameters. When you look at, this is an example from Polycom, but if you look at, the Polycom admin guide or the A-Link admin guide, they're typically going to show you something that looks like this first bullet here. It'll say something like softkey.feature.forward equals, and then in quotes, 0. What that's telling you is that the parameter that you need to modify is softkey.feature.forward, and that's what you would actually put into the parameter field. Then everything in quotes would actually go into the value field. So this is just kind of a breakdown of what it looks like. I thought it was very valuable for you guys to see what, some of these admin guides would tell you. So if you're going through and you're trying to set up something more specific to your needs, this is kind of what you would look like. So, softkey.feature.forward equals, and then in quotes, 0. The parameter would be this first part, and then the value would be what's in that quotations. So I'm not going to read through all of this for you. The do not disturb, again, there's multiple features in here that you can do. If you wanted to disable the do not disturb functionality of the device, you could use this top parameter. There are also specific parameters. Say you just wanted to remove it from the home screen, or you just wanted to remove it from the soft key. You can find the specific parameters for those things too. And there's a plethora of these features and functions that you can set at a parameter level. So call forwarding, this would essentially remove the call forwarding function from the phone. And this parameter down here at the bottom, where we're talking about soft key 2 and so on, that's where you would go in and you would put your VSC code or your star code to enable call forwarding at the network level. Do not
and
disturb.
can you add just a little bit of clarity on why you would want to do this versus the phone, what it does natively?
Yeah. So natively, the phone is, so if I have it set, for example, at do not disturb at the phone level, if that phone were to lose power or get disconnected or something like that, the do not disturb function is set on the phone. So if the phone's not operational, that function is no longer going to happen. People are just going to get the standard, this phone's not available or subscriber's not available error message. If it's set at the network level, even if that physical SIP device gets disconnected or you're swapping out the phone or something like that, because it's set at the network level, it's going to continue to function even though that SIP device is not connected to the network.
So just to clarify further, that If you leave it as it is from the phone, it's phone specific. But if you have another device plugged in, it will not follow the do not disturb because that's just a phone feature. If you set it at the network level, then it's anything with your line on it will follow that from a network versus a phone specific. So, okay, thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Perfect. All right, so anyway, this is what it looks like in the admin portal or the admin guides for Polycom Yealink. They all look very similar, but this is what you would see in those guides. If I translate that, this is what it looks like when you actually put it into the system. So once you kind of put in the parameters and then the action is going to be set, and then the value over here on the right is those values that we saw in the quotation marks. So if I were to go in and configure these in the system, that's how I would translate it. And then this is just a screenshot from the phone. So you can see this top one is Polycom network do not disturb. So the first section is going in and removing the do not disturb phone functions. And then I've got two different buttons set to turn do not disturb on and to turn it back off again. Same thing again with network call forwarding. I've removed the feature, so setting it to 0, so that removes the phone's call forwarding, and then adding in a soft key for *76, which is going to give me the ability to you press this button. It's going to then perform the *76 call forward. The next one that I wanted to show you guys was remote screen capture. So this is a really cool feature. It does take a little bit of configuration, but once you get it set up, it works great. Some of the things that I could see you using this for, remote provisioning verification, right? So if I'm trying to change button configuration on a phone, perhaps I got a ticket in to add in a particular button on the person's phone, but they've already left for the day, or maybe they're out on vacation, and I don't want to walk all the way down to their office. I can actually use this to verify that the button has come through on the device itself. Same thing for troubleshooting purposes. Any of the techs out there are going to know that when you're talking to somebody, if you could just see their phone, sometimes you could coach them along. So this gives you the ability to take those live screen captures. And then of course, being a trainer myself, right, I use this for training and documentation all the time. So if I need a screenshot from what the phone is, I can quickly go to a web address, type in my username and password, and pull a screenshot down from the phone itself. The device parameters in here, so some of these are actually already on the partner portal for you, but for Polycom, these are the device parameters that you would go in and set. Something to be mindful here, this does use the web interface for the phone itself, so you do need to actually enable the web interface as a part of enabling the screen capture functionality. So one of the things that I've got included here is not only enabling the web portal, but I've also changing the admin password for that web portal so that it's not the default password. Plus then what I can do is I can come in here and modify that password as I need to every 60 days, 90 days, whatever your internal policies are. Same thing again with Yealink. Yealink works a little bit differently. You do have to specify the network range, so the IP address range, and you do have to be on that local network. You do have the ability to setting that to all, but for security reasons, we would certainly recommend that you keep that only to your internal network as opposed to allowing any IP address to access that. Once you actually do go through and set up the device parameters, the next thing that you need to be aware of in order to capture the screen for that phone, you are going to type in https:// and then it's going to be the IP address for the phone itself. From there, for Polycom, it's going to be /capture screen. It is case sensitive, so the capital S is important there. Whereas Yealink, it's going to be screen capture all lowercase. The default username when trying to log in for a Poly device, it's going to be Polycom with a capital P. And then the default password is 456. But again, if you use that same line item code, it's whatever you set the password to in your device parameters. Same thing again with Yealink, the default username is admin, and then the password by default is admin. But again, if you're using the parameters that I just shared with you, it's whatever you set the admin password to. What that does is it pulls up a web interface like this. Now, this isn't a live view of the phone, so if somebody makes a modification, you're just taking a screenshot from when you execute the or when you refresh the page. So you're not going to see them, clicking the call forward button, or you're not going to be able to see what's happening with a phone call or something like that. It is just a screen capture, but then you can save this screen capture down and then use that for documentation or add it to your trouble ticket or whatever it is that you need to do to show, your progress. Once again, I do want to show you what this looks like in the actual portal. So if I come into my display here, I can come in. So this is the Polycom screen capture. Again, I do have the local admin password. I've got it set to a different default password here. If I wanted to, I can, certainly look at these. The two specific screen capture settings are going to be these two bottom ones. So up.screencapture.enabled, and you want to set that to 1. 0 is off, 1 is on. And then up.screencapture.value. So basically what that does is turn the feature on. These top ones are just enabling that web-based portal. Without the web-based portal being active, you won't be able to. You'll just get an error message when you try and log in.
So Simon, one of the questions that came in, just to clarify the screen capture, in order to do that, you do have to be on the same network, correct?
You do, yes. So Yealink does give you the ability to specify an IP limit. So I've got mine set to 10 dots because that's the internal network that I'm here on. There is also an all functionality, but again, I wouldn't recommend setting it to all. And then I also have it pulled up so you can just kind of see what this looks like. So this is a screen capture from a Polycom phone. It's, again, web interface. Again, this is not a live view. It is a screenshot. I can then right click. I can, copy the image. I can save the image, whatever it is I need to do. And then same thing again, this is what it looks like for a Yealink phone. Again, this is just a screenshot of the phone itself, but I can save the image, I can copy the image, whatever it is I need to do. All right, the next one, this one's kind of a cool little feature. If you're certainly in a larger office or something like that, one of the cool functions that you can do on these devices is actually implement a global address book and personal address books on the phone. What this is going to give you the ability to do is for the directory on these phones, it's going to pull from the subscriber list in your portal. So you don't have to go in and configure the global address book. And then you can also go in and set up personal address books that subscribers can then modify using the end-user web portal. All of this for Polycom and for Yealink devices is already out on the partner portal. So you can go through and download these CSV files and go through and implement these immediately for your SMBs. Again, for Polycom and for Yealink, the parameters are already out there on the partner portal for you. Once you download the CSV, There are a couple of fields in here that you're going to want to modify. So namely the URL. So this does need to be the end user portal URL for the actual SMB that you're working on. So whatever domain and things, you want to modify that. Everything else where you're seeing things like in brackets username or in brackets password, that's just telling the phone to look at to verify against their end user portal password. So there's nothing that needs to be changed there. The only thing that really needs to be changed in these is that URL. So once you put in their end user portal URL, upload the file, and you should be good to go. To go through, so this is just kind of an example of what that looks like when you're going through and actually importing the file itself. So you'll see I've already created a GAB group. I know it's a little bit difficult to see in the first screenshot here, but I've already created the group. I'm then going to go to add from file. I'm going to select the CSV file that I want to upload and click that upload button. This is the screen that I was talking about with the complete import. So it's going to come through, it's going to give me a list of all of the parameters here and tell me whether or not it's going to import them correctly. Once you click complete import, you'll see that that manila folder that shows up for the group is going to have all of those parameters listed under it. Again, because I've used this group name in my CSV file that I was uploading. So it was able to pull in all of that information. If you had questions about where to go to configure all of these different directories, so in the personal address book is done in the end user web portal. So there's an address book tab in the end user web portal. They can come in here, they can go through, they can add contacts as they see fit. And then down at the bottom, I've clicked on the search company list, and this is the company directory. Again, it's just basically pulling a list from all of the subscribers that are built onto this network. And then on the phone itself, this is kind of what that looks like as well. So on the phone, because I've got it enabled, I do have the ability to look at the local directory, which is just built directly on the phone. But you'll also see I have options for a global address book and a personal address book. So if I click the global address book button on the phone, I then see all of the subscribers built in the system. If I were to then go to, on that same phone, go to personal address book instead, I'm only seeing the personal contacts that I've added via the end user web portal. So again, this all syncs. So if I make a modification in the end user web portal, or we update a name for a subscriber, in the admin portal, all of that would sync through down to these phones, and it would update pretty instant. All right. The next one that I wanted to show you guys is adding logos to a SIP device. So this is hugely beneficial to you guys as partners. So essentially what you can do here is at your partner level or at an individual SMB level, you could take your company logo and add it into the display on the phone itself. So this is good not only for, branding and things like that from your perspective, but it also lets people know who their phone vendor is, right? So who they can contact. So you see in some of the screenshots and things that I've already shared with you, I've got the Kandy logo on my phones. But not only could I put the Kandy logo, but I might also put something like, text that says, for technical support, dial this telephone number. So that anybody that looks at any of these phones, they can quickly see, who it is that they need to contact if there's a problem. So, that's a hugely beneficial thing. Once again, so this is what it looks like there is a document out there for Yealink devices to add the wallpaper is what this is referred to. You can add the wallpaper file. Again, got the device parameters here for Polycom and for Yealink as well. You can go through and add these devices in as you see fit. The one thing that you will need, so again, these are web-based devices. You'll see each of these does have a line item for the URL for the actual logo. So you will want to store that somewhere on the internet. You'll just need a URL for whatever logo it is that you're wanting the phones to display. Again, here's what this looks like in the admin portal. So I've got a group for Poly wallpaper. I've got another group for Yealink wallpaper, and you can kind of see what those different parameters look like and how I've got them configured on the device. What you'll notice here is I do have these set, to pull the same PNG. They do look a little bit differently. You saw my Polycom example was a black background versus the white background on my Yealink phone. That's just because I uploaded a transparent PNG. So if you wanted it to display, a solid background instead of pulling from the display settings on the phone, you could certainly do that. So again, here's a couple of examples. So this is what it looks like from the actual phone side of things. So over on the left-hand side, you do have and again, these are the same image, it's just a transparent PNG. But you do have the logo on a Polycom device versus what that same logo looks like on a Yealink device. In these charts down at the bottom, I've also tried to include what the optimal size is for these different logos. So you can see based on the model of phone that you're working with, what the recommended sizes are. For Polycom and then Yealink, again, they went with a resolution option, so you can see what their resolution settings are. If you had a question about a specific device, you can certainly go out to, Yealink's manuals for those specific devices. Again, this is typically going to be referred to as wallpaper in those manufacturer manuals, but they'll give you what the screen resolution sizes are for the various model phones. All right, so again, just to kind of show you another view. So again, using the screen capture, you can see I've got the Kandy logo here on a Yealink device. I've also got the Kandy logo again on a Polycom device. But what you'll see is if I wanted to, I could also include some text here, maybe that says, what the technical support line is, or who to contact for sales, all of those kinds of things. I could certainly add in as a logo. So it's displayed right there on the phone. This is another one that's it's good to understand the hierarchy of how these device parameters are pulled, meaning that they are pulled from the partner above the SMB or from that specific SMB itself, right? So if you're like in the original slide where we had partner 2, if you have a partner underneath you, you could have your logos for all of the SMBs that you service, but then that partner that's built beneath you could actually have a separate logo file that they share to all of the SMBs built underneath them. The next thing that I wanted to share with you guys is some useful items that you can kind of take away from this. There is tons of documentation out there on the partner portal, so you can look for things like the supported devices. We do update that document quarterly. We have phone configuration guides for audio code devices, Cisco, Polycom, and Yealink. There's also a lot of how-to device information on adding devices. There's SIP phone configuration for all supported but not certified phones. So what that's meaning is we obviously certify phones, but any phone that's supported, there's configuration information out there for. There is also a knowledge base. So in that knowledge base, there's sample device parameter configuration files. You, again, have seen screenshots throughout this presentation for both Poly and Yealink phones. If you did need additional assistance from there, there is also end user training for audio code, Polycom, and Yealink. And you can access that by just going to kandy.io/end user training. Another thing that I did want to share with you guys, we have gone ahead and scheduled the upcoming Fireside chats for the rest of the year. So we are currently doing the SIP phone customization. The next one will be troubleshooting tips and tricks on September 14th. On October 25th, we're going to be talking about developing using Kandy APIs. We're going to do MS Teams integrations with Kandy in November 17th. And then in December, we're going to be talking about SIP PBX trunking as a service. If you wanted to go ahead and register for those or sign up for those, you can by going to kandy.io/events. Those are all out there. You can go ahead and register and get those set up on your calendar. Other than that, that was all I had. Do we have any questions that we want to address, Sarah or Jason?
I'm just looking here. So there was a question about documentation of other Yealink devices. And honestly, we have a generic Yealink configuration document, and anything specific to a certain model or anything like that should go, you should go specifically back to Yealink and get their end user documentation. And then majority of our other stuff is generic, but on the end user training, somebody recommended adding the T57 in there. So we'll look at that. But I think those are all the questions that we had. Great webinar. And thanks for the questions. Thanks for the participation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll be sending this out as well. So if this was something that you felt like would be of interest to someone else in your organization that would really help them, then please make sure that they watch the replay. Okay, thanks everybody.
Awesome, thanks everyone. Have a good day.